news that's short, sharp and shrewd.
Are you talking about the podcast or me?
Both.
Backhanded compliment.
This is Up Late with Ben Harvey. Saw you got stuck into bikies while I was away.
Yeah.
I suppose we're not done yet.
No, we'll be talking about this for a while, I suspect, because Troy Mercanti being done for anti-consorting is just the start.
Who's next?
It's hard to say because it doesn't appear the cops are going after the most dangerous bikies to start. I think there was a period that Mercanti was the most dangerous bikie, but that was a long time ago. He was the first recipient of an anti-consorting notice, banned from communicating with 31 named bikies for 3 years because the cops wanted to send a message.
It's time to hit back.
Imagine if the first bikie hit with the inaugural consorting order, the first bloke targeted with the harshest legislation in Australia was some no-name numpty from a gang nobody had ever heard of, like the Iron Horsemen.
Where'd you pull that from? Sounds like an 80s rock band.
It's a thing, it's a real gang. But lead singer of Iron Horsemen hit with anti-consorting notice doesn't have the same cut-through, does it?
Not quite.
The cops wanted the bikie poster boy so it would be on the front page of the paper. So well played, gang crime. This is clearly as much of a PR battle as it is a crime battle, because to be honest, there are people out there responsible for more misdeeds than T. Mercanti Esquire. I'm not for a second saying this bloke spends his day doing charity work, but there are worse eggs out there.
When it comes to Mercanti and the cops, it's personal though.
And then some. He has run rings around the police for 25 years. He's belted people as a bouncer. He's been charged with selling mull. He's caught on CCTV shooting someone, but he gets off with either a fine or completely scot-free just about every single time. He managed to convince the cops to give him a travel exemption during COVID so he could go to the funeral of a Mongol in New South Wales, I think it was. That was embarrassing for the constabulary. It was only when his own mother testified against him in a domestic violence trial that he did any serious time in jail. The cops hate the fact they've never really nailed him on any proper bikie business.
Or maybe he got taken for a ride.
Not on his lonesome there. So who else have the cops got a grudge against?
I reckon you'll see the heads of each gang targeted, the presidents and the sergeants at arms. That makes strategic sense, particularly for the rebels and the Mongols, who are the two most aggressive clubs in WA at the moment. The Comancheros are another aggressive gang, but the cops are already all over them. Senior member Ray Chili's in exile in Thailand because he knows if he steps foot in Australia, the cops are going to give him some new jewellery. Nick Maximovich is the former state commander. I say former because he's now in jail for importing 56 kilos of meth. He called himself ethnic Brad Pitt, as you might remember, during his communications with the other members of the syndicate, one of whom has just been busted smuggling 122 tablets of various unknown pharmaceuticals into jail. This cracks me up. Quinn Newton took the drugs to court on the day that his verdict was going to be handed down.
Sorry, what?
Well, he knew he was going to be found guilty and would be sent straight to jail.
Why'd he take the drugs with him?
He told the court today that it was because of back pain. Presumably the kind of back pain you get from walking around with 122 tablets shoved up your ass. But we digress. Also in court today was Alexander Nikolic. He was the master of a bulk shipping carrier the cops reckon the Comancheros used to import $128 million worth of cocaine recently. So as you can see, the Comos are well in the sights of the cops without anti-consorting notices.
Okay, so what about the older clubs?
The four original clubs in WA, that's the Coffin Cheaters, Gypsy Jokers, Club Darrows and God's Garbage, have been very quiet of late. You don't see these guys strutting around like the Mongols and the Rebels and the Comos, but they're still doing what bikies do, so the cops might hit some of the more high-profile members just for the hell of it. Over at the Coffin Cheaters, Paul Muley might get one. He's an influential member. John Fury's been in the headlines and has profile, so might be an anti-consorting target. Chris Ballistic Orchard took to social media to complain about how the new laws were turning WA into Nazi Germany. He did that in front of a Coffin Cheaters motif that included a swastika. His brain was clearly not consorting with logic there.
The guy next to him should be consorting with a hairdresser.
Why aren't mullets banned under the bikie insignia laws? Club Darrows have been very quiet of late, but the cops have it in for one of their more senior blokes, that's Andrew Edhouse. They reckon he knows something about what happened to a woman named Lisa Govan. She was last seen outside the Darrows clubhouse in Kalgoorlie in 1999, hasn't been seen since. They might give him one just to give him the shits. Graham Slim Slater at the Gypsy Jokers was charged with blowing up the former head of the CIB, Don the Silver Fox Hancock. He got off, which has infuriated the cops for the past 20 years, so they might get a little revenge, served very cold, by slapping one on him. This is the great thing about these anti-consorting notices. The cops can pretty much hit anyone with them because Chris Dawson is judge, jury and executioner about how they're used.
The verdict is in, Frank, but the jury is out.
What a shame politicians in the US can't make tough decisions.
Another shooting, 4 dead, this time in Oklahoma.
It happened at a medical building on the campus of St. Francis Hospital in Tulsa.
They set up a reunification centre for families to find loved ones at a nearby school, which was a brave act in itself because, as we know, the latest shooting comes 8 days after 19 kids and 2 teachers were killed at an elementary school in Texas. But don't worry, the White House has issued a statement that President Joe Biden has been briefed and is monitoring the situation. No, wait, he is closely monitoring the situation.
Heard it all before.
Yeah.
I pray that his courage and wisdom will at long last move this Congress to make common sense gun legislation the very next order of business.
All of us need to demand a Congress brave enough to stand up to the gun lobby's lies.
Talk about the problem is just about all that an American president can ever do, as long as it's the case that a critical number of Americans are opposed to gun reform. The country is in such a mess that the gun control lobby thinks it's a win if they restrict the magazines of assault rifles to 5 rounds. So you can only kill 5 people at a time before you have to reload.
It beggars belief they can't sort this shit out.
People talk about the right to bear arms, but the reality is, even if that right wasn't enshrined in the Constitution, there would still be a lot of guns in America, because Americans like guns, and they will elect politicians that allow them to own them.
As your president, I will never, ever infringe on the right of the people to keep and bear arms.
In 2020, a Gallup poll showed 52% of Americans supported strict laws. 52%. It's a political no-win situation. For every vote you pick up, you lose one. That basic electoral mathematics is why the status quo remains through shooting, after shooting, after shooting, after shooting.
Surely they can join the dots here.
Well, the more pertinent question is not about why Americans don't want reform. It's why do American gun owners go on mass shootings with such regularity? That doesn't happen in other countries. You go to West Africa or the Middle East and you'll find a lot of weapons. Some of them we left there. Canadians love guns almost as much as Americans. Their schools aren't conducting active shooter drills though.
Or as we like to call it, hide from the bang-bangs. All right, who wants to be the shooter? Me.
The pro-gun argument goes like this. There are 390 million guns in America right now. If you ban the sale of new guns, there will still be more guns in America than there are people in America. 120 firearms for every 100 people. And as long as those weapons are out there, law-abiding citizens are going to want to tool up.
If some of those people had a gun tied to their ankle, or a gun tied right up here to their waist, or a gun right over here, they would have had a hell of a fighting chance.
That's what the Donald observed after 137 Parisians were shot dead in coordinated terror attacks in 2015. He clearly agrees with the NRA. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Hang on, so you agree with that?
I do. But the good guy should be a cop. I'm Ben Harvey. If you'd like to watch Up Late with me, Ben Harvey, search for The West Australian on YouTube.